There we go.
And I'm going to go back to screen share.
You're gonna have to tell me how you do that screen share.
Sure.
Because I see it now divided in two. When I do screen share, what tends to happen is that the person in the speaking goes very small. Oh, you explain it to me later.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Let's go.
And hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the Point Origin Reboot. I'm your host, Jeff Werner, and once again, we have Mr. David Williams joining us here today on the program. Before we get started, just a little protocol. Just ask everyone, if I missed you, to please keep your video and audio muted. As we go, you're welcome to ask questions in the chat box. I will monitor that, and we will either ask the questions of David directly or weave them into the conversation as time allows. So today we have some newcomers to Point Origin, and welcome. To get us started, actually, I'd like to invite David to provide a bit of reference about the logic as a technology of communication, which is distinct and different from other spiritual material that you may have been exposed to. So David, you want to talk a little bit about the differences and distinctions of the logic compared to some other material out there?
Well, yeah, just to kind of give a reference as a differentiation, and I don't like to talk about this approach as a spiritual approach. Of course, what it does look into is what we could call our multidimensional and interdimensional nature. Yeah. So it is taking into account just different, we could say, speed frequencies that reality. It's kind of like the analogy we could use is the electromagnetic spectrum, which a certain part of it is visible, others are another area of that spectrum is invisible to our eye, and the whole spectrum has just different speeds, yeah, different frequencies more than speeds. So it has a multi-level of speeds. What we could, when light is unfolded, we see different colors, but they all part in an integrated whole. Now, why I like to see it more like a logical approach, so to have what do we call a technical eye and not a spiritual eye, because the tendency with at least what we know as spirituality, religion, mysticism, and all that, it tends to approach because we can divide these dimensions, we could say, into, let's say there's just two groups. A group, one is more tangible. It's more tangible. The tangible ones is what we could, using the analogy of the electromagnetic spectrum, is the one that we could say the visible. It's like the tangible, the visible. Then the one that we can't see, we could say it's intangible. It's not tangible. But it doesn't mean that it's not playing a part in the whole spectrum. Yeah. Now, what tends to occur with spirituality, so ones are more abstract and ones are more concrete, ones are more tangible or subtle. Sorry, ones are more subtle and others are more tangible. Ones are, we could say, have a in a way a higher frequency and others a lower frequency, what tends to happen to spirituality is that it tends to see the more intangible, the more abstract, the more invisible as something which has a superior, it's superior to the tangible, to the visible, to the concrete, to the restricted. Okay. Now, you see, if we're going to see it, because it tends to look at things morally, even if it doesn't want to, it tends to see things in a value. So it has a value on this is better than this. Or, for example, if we're talking about something that is more tangible, more restricted, there tends to be a high level of division. Yeah. Like if we see the tangible physical experience, it's highly divided, very much divided, like it has this anatomy of division. And what maybe in spirituality is seen as duality, for example, but it already has a kind of negative connotation. So that, like, if duality is a problem versus unity, okay? And the more kind of intangible, abstract, that is more who we are, and this is not who we are. This is just, you know, an experience. I don't think that's correct, that point of view, or I don't want to present that point of view. What I do want to present is that okay, there is a division, there is a differentiation in multi dimensions, but all the dimensions, there's no such thing as better or worse dimensions. There's no such thing as superior or inferior. It's just a whole, an integrative whole that has to co-participate together. In the same way, let's see, like, you know, let's take water. You know, water, depending on its temperature, it can be in a more like solid, like ice. It could be more liquid or gas. Just imagine we say, well, because gas is a more intangible, we say, okay, that's better. It's like water is better when it's gas. So it's crappier, you know, it's like, it's not as good when it's ice. You know, like it's a moral point of view that technically it doesn't make sense. Because in a mountain where it's cold and it has to do a reservation of water, it's very good that the water goes cold and goes into an ice form. You see, like when you look at something technically, you're going to look how all those components work together. That's like a technology is not going to say the screen is superior to the keyboard. It's going to say, okay, it's made out of different components, and these components each have a function for an integrative whole. So, you know, and it's not like ascending or descending. It's about intercommunicating. That's what I refer to as an interdimensional or a multidimensional logic or a non-linear logic. A multidimensional logic is, which is looking, you see, that's the beauty of logic, okay? It's not probably the rational logic that we used to, but there is a logic, that's why we call it a non-linear logic, to our multidimensional nature, where it's not something like one frequency is better than the other, you see? And we have to ascend and leave this crappy, dense, restricted physical plane. You see, because what that creates is that you're not involved in this plane of experience. You just want to get out of here because you consider that's home, this isn't. So you want to check out. You see, but that is because you've constructed an idea that this is morally inferior to some other area of oneself.
I hear this as acceptance of what is.
Yeah, acceptance of what is and understanding the function of each of the components of what is. Mm-hmm. It's not resignation. It's like, I'm not resigning myself to, it's that there's a purpose, that there is an area that is highly restricted, because that is true. When we're talking about a dense, more physical form, we're talking about a restriction. Now, a restriction or density isn't bad. It's just a focus. It's a focus, and actually, really, it's where experience takes place in its greatest, we could say, flavor. So yeah, well, we accept what is, but we accept it because we understand that each of the components has a function together. You know, like what I notice with spirituality, or what I tend to hear with spirituality, is that there is a connotation, a negative connotation. Maybe it's not even done on purpose. You know, it's just very unconscious. But like the intangible is more. It's superior, and that technically, just in a technical point of view, that is not true. It has a different nature. Okay, that's true. Meaning it's not so restricted. Okay, that's true. Like, well, if we had to divide three areas in this whole interdimensional or multidimensional, we could talk about, you know, the physical component of our body, what we call it our personal consciousness. We could also say our soul, and then we could talk about a kind of impersonal, non-divided source, which the name we could put is nothingness, everythingness. Even we can use the name spirit if we want to. But these are not, you know, hierarchies of better or worse. It's just different components of a technology called reality.
So we're removing value judgments about each matter.
Yeah, because that's what, you know, when you have a technical point of view, like if you are an engineer, or, you know, if you have a technical point of view, you're looking for coherency. You're not looking for a value system. You're not looking for better or worse. You're looking for a coherency. So like if, or let's say a computer technician, it's not gonna, you know, kind of judge the screen above the keyboard, above the hard drive, above. It just understands that they are each areas that have qualities that are different, that have to work together.
Right.
You see, but we don't do that with our nature, or with our multidimensional nature. What we tend to do is select one and say this is better than the other. It's another way of saying it. Like if you want to understand the body, you can't understand it morally. You can't say that the brain is better than the guts, because how well would the brain work if we take out the guts? It wouldn't work.
Right.
You see, because it's not about choosing one over the other. It's not providing a kind of better, worse. It's about, okay, they have a different function, different nature, a different quality, a different, but how do they like the big question is how do we interconnect and intercommunicate our multidimensional level? Not how do I ascend, how do I leave the physical form, how do I go back to home, like meaning this isn't home. Okay, so it's all of, in a way, what does that tend to end up making? That one is not committed with their physical experience. So that's what spirituality tends to do. So it's like I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do here and get the hell out of here because I want to go back home. You see, you're already denying the importance of this physical dimension. You know.
Right. So you point to an acceptance of reality, and I thought we might work into the today's subject of calculating the calendar by just touching on some bullet points from last program about reality. Last program, we discussed that reality has a consciousness of its own that is distinct from what we tend to call objective reality. We also recognize that existence is a manifested plane of a larger reality, so what we perceive as existence. We also established that reality has a consciousness of its own, and that consciousness unfolds into different expressions of that consciousness, such as you and I being different, and those are different expressions of consciousness itself. and that there's a preparation before there's an experience. So now this points to time, the existence of time, which I think is quite relevant in talking about the calendar, and that the aspects and resources of the past are there to assist us with experiences in the present and the future. And one such expression here on Earth is what we almost universally have taken up as the common calendar. Is there anything you want to first touch on from the last program to fill that out, to bring people into today's conversation?
Yeah, well, mainly for the people who are approaching this for the first time, maybe they have some sort of interest in, well, in spiritual matters, or, you know, I'm not sure, like quantum physics or something like that. But like, again, what we want to, of course, what this isn't is a material reductionism, you know, because then we have science and it's material reductionism, meaning that it's just a kind of, you know, this is what it is, and denying what we could call the more invisible and tangible that is constructing the tangible. So, you know, science kind of flips it the other way around. It says, okay, this is the good, cool stuff, and all that is just fantasy world.
Well, you're referring to the warm and cool side of what we do.
Sorry?
The warm and the cool side of the exploration.
Yeah. So, what we can see is, like, if science has kind of said, okay, this tangible stuff, this is the goodie, and spirituality says, no, this is like not the goodie, it's more the intangible stuff. And what this is saying is that no, look, guys, it's just an unfoldment of different speeds of dimensions, which are interrelated as a whole. It is an integral system of communication, where if we can't reduce everything to what we call the tangible, but we can't say that the intangible is superior in a way to the tangible. So it's looking for a logic which can interconnect these dimensions, because there's a technology working here, which is a technology of communication. You know, we're in the age of telecommunication technology, aren't we? But we take that as something that our computer does, not my consciousness. You see, something that my computer does, my phone does, but we don't pay attention that is just a reflection of really how consciousness works. That there's an antenna that is catching a global internet. What is that global internet? Okay, now let's move slowly into this whole calendar thing, because if we just go into the calendar, we don't have some base,
sure,
you know, positions. Like, which would be, you know, that global Wi-Fi, you know, where is that kind of central nervous system with which, you know, we are kind of connecting with? I would say that the first one that we would pay attention, the first central nervous system or central server of the Wi-Fi would be the consciousness of planet Earth. Okay. So, meaning that we are a living being, but which is participating on a planet. And now, probably, I'm not sure how far-fetched this will be for people, but this planet, our consciousness is an emergence, is a divided emergence of this global consciousness. Okay. So there is a global internet, which is the consciousness of this planet, and we are like antennas. We are like personal computers participating in this global consciousness. Yeah. Now, let's look at the planet. What is a planet? You know, where now we have to talk. If we talk about time, we have to talk about space. So what I'm talking here is about divisions of space. Now, this planet, what, you know, Is it part of another whole, another unit of, is it part of another system? But we have the human system, you know, but then the planet is a part of a system. Well, yes, it's part of a solar system. And the solar system has 9 other planets, and it has a nucleus, a central nervous system of the organism, of this family of the solar system, which is the sun. And a sun is a star. Now, what is a star? A star is something that is emitting light. It's not so much receiving it. It's emitting light. Now, this is kind of like if the star, a way of saying, is like a neuron. You know, it's like synapses. It's doing that, and it's connected with other stars, and it's doing a neurological network. Okay, meaning, am I saying that the sun has consciousness? Yes, it is a neuron of the universe. So what are we? We're like an organ of an organism called the solar system. Now, there's 9 planets, and they each have a position being further or further away from the sun. That means it has a location, and that position gives it a function. Okay, so is this just a space system? Like, is this just organized in a space, like a kind of puzzle, and is this frozen like that? Or is it having relationships with each other? It's having relationships with each other. And what is a relationship between a planet, a sun? What is that? It's something called time. It's the Earth moving around itself and moving around the sun. That movement is establishing cycles, and those cycles are organized in what we call time. And that time is making something have a progression, a change, a growth, an evolution. So that's why we call this space-time structures. Space-time structures. Now, what is a calendar? Now, if we go into what a calendar is a way of organizing, administrating that natural cycle which is happening between this planet and the sun. Mainly the calendar we use is a solar calendar, and it has this relationship, because something understands that we are not just fixed space. We are a space, a division of space, but which is relating with each other, which has a dynamic, which has a movement, which has cycles. Yeah. These cycles are organized in the case of the Earth, you know. The cycle is, well, day and night, isn't it? Day and night. We could say that reflects, again, this kind of visible and invisible, because the day is where we see things, and the night is where we don't see things. So it's, you see, and behind the spirituality, we have this thing that light is good, dark is bad, isn't it? Like when we see the goodies, where they dressed up in white, aren't they? And the baddies in black. Now, you see, well, that is not very functional. You know, it really, what it is that there has to be a moment that we communicate with the tangible, and a moment that we communicate with the intangible, which in the rotation of the Earth, it's what we call day and what we call night. You know, day is when that face of the Earth is facing to the sun, and the other one is when it's facing to outside space. Well, and that is communicating with these 2 areas of our, and these are 2 areas of consciousness: visible, tangible; invisible, and tangible; abstract, concrete; existence, non-existence. See, it replicates in a fractal. Now, a calendar, okay, so the Earth has this day and night cycle, but then, which means it is a cycle of rotation around itself, you know. So what's it doing? It's looking at itself in a way. It's like self-contemplating. So it turns around, Yeah, because what is, you know, consciousness doing? It's becoming conscious of. What is conscious of? It's turning around and looking at itself. Yeah, so that's why spin is so important in the universe, because it's a way of turning and looking and seeing the 360 kind of degree view of all the points. Yeah. So how many times does the Earth do this to go around the sun? To have a whole what's it called, a revolution, around the sun. A revolution, because it is a revolution. Each year is a revolution for the Earth. It's a new evolution. It's a new purpose for evolution. Yeah. Well, it takes this kind of 365.25. You know, that's why we have the leap years and all that. Those are relationships between Earth consciousness, which is our planet, and sun consciousness, which is, we could say, the central nervous system of this organism called the solar system. Yeah. So the calendar has a division according to this natural cycle. So what is the calendar doing? It's a way of communicating and interrelating these structure consciousness, that's what I call a planet or a sun, structure consciousness, and us as contents of these structures. Like it's communicating the parts and the whole in this relationship. Yeah. I'm not sure. Did I kind of give an overview of it?
That's the overview. What comes to mind also, though, is the months and the relationship of the moon as well. So we add that in to the calendar.
Yeah. Well, the moon is there, isn't it? Like, what is the moon? It's kind of like a part of Earth that's separated. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of theories, but let's just go. Like, it's a self-contemplation. It's like the moon it's like a satellite view. You know, within yourself, you have a thought pattern. Like, I'm not sure, a thought pattern that's repeating. You know, whatever it is. Let's say
a habit.
Yeah, like, okay, like a thought pattern about an opinion about someone. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you have the possibility of contemplating it. Can you see that?
Yes.
So you can have the thought pattern, and then your consciousness can kind of do a satellite view on it. You can look at it from outside. Can you see that?
So it's an external awareness.
Exactly. It's an external awareness of self-contemplation. And the whole thing of the cycles of the 28 days and all that of the moon. So there's also calendars that are based on the moon. See? So these calendars are connecting with these celestial bodies, or connecting with the cycles of these celestial bodies, and organizing, because we tend to see calendars just a way of organizing my time to be more efficient with my crops, with my, okay, that is one level. But in a deeper level, it's how our different consciousness communicates between each other. Because, of course, when I say me, I recognize that I'm not a planet. You know, I'm not a planet. I don't have the kind of I don't have the hierarchy, but not as superior. The hierarchy means that a planet includes many elements, but that doesn't happen with my consciousness. I am a human being on a planet. Now, my consciousness has to communicate with the consciousness of the Earth. But the consciousness of the Earth and of the sun is vastly more amplified. So we have to have a medium which can do a translation, like a communication. That's a calendar.
I'm hearing in
and
there.
then, you see, well, when you're born, for example, the place and time where you're born is not chance, not coincidence. Okay, because a space has a frequency and a time has a frequency. When you're born there, you have a kind of space-time configuration, a frequency. So, for example, and then we think, okay, but it could happen every day. But have you ever heard of the anniversary syndrome? Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, when you see families, sometimes a family tree, for example, you can see that there's this date that things tend to happen on that date. Sometimes it's accidents, for example, and it's a date where accidents repeat. So it's like, oh, what a coincidence. No, 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 it's not a coincidence. It is a fiber of frequency in which something can kind of repeat itself, because that's what a cycle is. It's a repetition of something that is changing, isn't it? Like, no, the spring is kind of similar, but it's not the same spring 1 year from another. So it's a cycle, it has a cycle which is changing. So what this syndrome this anniversary syndrome that some people have, is they see that what happens is that they touch on this point of this coordinate of time, and things tend to kind of in a way repeat itself very similarly. Meaning that date, that signal of organizing a cycle in the calendar, is connecting with a kind of frequency configuration. So that's why it happens. It happens like it repeats itself in a way because there must be something to become more aware about in that position. Look, take for example my family. I'm born in one equinox, the 21st of March. And my daughter's born on the other equinox, was the 21st of September, which is exactly 6 months. And we share, well, there's a person in my family, my grandfather. He was born on the 26th of June, which is solstice, which is exactly, if we look at it, it would be the date of conception of my daughter. Okay, well, there is a pattern, because we think we making all the choices. That's reductionism. We think that the action I'm taking, it all depends on my decisions in my neurological dimension. Okay, no, your neurological dimension is translating other dimensions, and when it translates that, it kind of puts it into function.
This is pointing to a cyclical machine, although machine sounds a little cold, because I know there's a consciousness exchange. And also, as you go on, I think what's important to cover here is also expressed and not expressed. So if you might
Which is not the same as negative. This is a bit technical though.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say that negative is what's not expressed. That's not true. That's not true. That technically, that's not how it is. It's like, for example, negative, when I'm going to make a house, what is the negative of the house? When I draw it, you call it a plane?
The plan.
The plan. Yeah. Okay, that's a negative, but it's expressed. The only thing is that it's expressed in a different dimension than where the house is going to be built. So negative is not equal to non-expressed. That's not correct. Negative is the kind of abstract construction of what after is going to be more concrete.
Well, wouldn't there be the negative before the drawing? It's the abstract idea of it. Then
you see, the negative before the drawing is just another level of negative.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. But then once you made the drawing, that would be an expressed version.
Okay, I'm using an analogy. Yeah, it's an express version because it's already a drawing, but it's not the house.
Right.
It's not the house. But when the house is built, the drawing is still there, but it's invisible. Because the house has a certain dynamic, it has a certain, calculations that was done previously. You don't see it, but it's there. Right. Can you see?
Yeah.
It's like, you just imagine I'm going to make that door. And first the door I calculate and I do an abstract kind of configuration, and then I make the door. Now, when the door is already there, I throw away the drawing, let's say, but still that drawing is still in the door because it is born out of that abstraction, that plan. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Now, what is non-expressed? Non-expressed is the idea from which I start to build the house. It's like the activation of a new possibility, a new question. Can you see the difference? It's not the same.
So can you draw the parallel to bring us into the calendar of expressed and non-expressed?
Well, one way of seeing it is that expressed is kind of like what we could say the past to the present. That is expressed. Non-expressed is more the future to the present. And look what a calendar does. It allows us to have a multi-time consciousness. Why? Because, for example, today is the 29th of October. Okay,
August.
9. Also, well,
yeah.
so we've already been through 242 days of this year, meaning 242 days have been expressed, have been lived, have been experienced, have been displayed. But the year hasn't ended because there's still 124 days to come. Now, you see, that is not expressed.
Yeah, right, I guess.
Just a second, I'll take it.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, that is not expressed. Okay. Now, does that mean that it's not participating? The future is not participating? Okay. Now, this is where we have to see that time isn't just from the past to the future. It's not, because the way that we tend to see time is that the past, whatever's been learned there, that is what's making the future. You see, but there's a future consciousness which is moving the direction of that past. And the best analogy that I can come up with in this is that, you see, when you got a seed, and the seed is going to become a tree, which its aim is to have a fruit, which is going to have a seed. Okay. Now, in that seed, just imagine you start planting the seed, and the seed starts to grow. Well, the seed's gonna, maybe at the beginning it starts with the roots. Okay, well, that's the expressed aspect. Now, the tree, the trunk, and the rest, the leaves and the branches, that is in the more than non-expressed, correctly, technically, but I don't want to get, is more in the negative. Okay, but it is there, but it's in negative. It doesn't mean that the seed is growing blindly, No, there is a future. So it's kind of like I sometimes say, just imagine it's an apple tree. The apple is telling the seed what to do. Okay? So the future is telling the past through the present how to move. So so you can be in communication with your past, but you can also be in communication with your future. Because time is, it's not linear. It's not in one direction. It's non-linear.
Right. So if we accept that.
So just a second. Sorry. So what does a calendar do? It allows us to have a system where we can see how the future, the negative, is talking with the past. Like, for example, today. You see, it's the positive is 242 and the negative is 124. Now, okay, that has a frequency and that has a meaning. We can't get into that now, but what I'm saying is that is a frequency. That is a frequency, and there's a frequency of the past, and there's a frequency of the future.
So we touched on anticipation of the future. In the prior episode, and I'm wondering if we could take these concepts, also the cycles that you just brought up, and some ways of just simply applying it ourselves in day to day.
Okay. This is interesting because you see, we don't apply it. It applies
It
us.
applies us. Yes. It's caught the language there, but yes.
You see, because what we're doing is reading how space-time is applying us. We do have a participation in what I call the management of the day. Okay, so there is a, it's not, I don't like to see it as what you call deterministic. There is an area of responsibility, but you see, when we're talking about space-time structures and how they communicate and the count, so what is the calendar really doing? It's just reading. It's a way of reading what is applying us. Yeah, so it's not us reading something and applying. It's just allowing us to read what is there. It's like, you know, language in a way. What it's allowing us is to read what is already written. First of all, read what's already written. So if I go to to the city and I can see that one is a bank and one is a shop, because I can read what is there. You see what I mean? I'm not writing it, I'm reading it. So the calendar, the first thing I would say, which is interesting, it allows us to read this interdimensional communication, which is occurring between these cycles of mainly our planet and the sun, and us in the middle participating. Yeah. Then there is a level that we do participate, like actually writing. You know, we contribute in the writing. Now that does take a level of a bit more, I would say, more amplified awareness, you know, because I would say the first interesting contribution of writing is just to be able to allow the experience and read it from as many angles as possible. So I sometimes give this analogy. I give the, what you call it, the wine taster, is it?
The wine taster, you said, or
It's a person who tastes wine.
I can never pronounce that word. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's a French.
Yeah, it's a French word.
Okay, you guys know what I'm talking about.
We got it.
You got it.
I
Well,
always get a tongue twister there. Yep.
The wine taster, a good wine taster, needs two different elements. Yeah. One thing is the capacity of fully experiencing the wine. What do I mean by that? Tasting, to be open to the taste, to the smell, to the visual color. Okay, so it has to have a very highly sensitive experience of the wine. But does that alone make it a good wine taster? No, it has to have something else. The capacity of reading that taste. And what does it need to read that taste? It needs what we call parameters. Parameters in a library where it can, when it's tasting the wine, it can know that, okay, it's this type of grape, it's this type of, you know, it's got a fruit, or so it can read and interpret that experience, and between both there's an awareness, a higher awareness of the wine. Like, so what is the calendar in a way doing? It's providing parameters with which we can read our experience, but we have to be involved in the experience. We have to be tasting, we have to be smelling, we have to be in touch.
So we can read our experiences in context of time?
Yeah. We can, do you mean we can take a date and kind of see what happened there? And the date is going to give us information about that experience?
Yes, that's one way, you know, whether it's in the past or perceived past or in the present, and in a way in anticipating
in the future.
Yep.
In the future. But what I wouldn't like is that you can predict events. I think that is not interesting. Why? Because what you can maybe like, when I use this analogy in other interview, but I think it's very good. You know that, for example, spring is coming here. It's like close, it's coming spring. So I kind of know, because I already have parameters of what spring tends to do. And on those parameters, I can kind of, you know, anticipate and organize myself. But I can't really know what's going to happen during spring. It's the same thing. It's like I can have the anticipation of the kind of perfume or the nature of that moment in time, that month, etc. But I can't really know, okay, this is going to happen and this is going to happen and this. I think that is a way of seeing anticipation, which is, I would say it's more about anecdotal than really serves us for, because at the end, what we want all this to do is not to have superpowers. What we want all this to do, because that's another thing a lot of times with spirituality, it's like the power, this is not about becoming powerful. Okay, that's first thing. This is not about becoming powerful. This is about becoming more aware. It's about becoming more conscious. It's about becoming more wiser. You see, so so that's why we want to have a system which I can begin to anticipate the frequency that a month is going to have a day in a month is going to have. That day falls in a frequency, means that, like, for example, I'm born on the 21st of March. So it's the 80th day of the year that has a frequency to it. And there's a negative to that, okay? There's a frequency where I can read myself in a more kind of abstract level. I'm not only going to read myself as a person who was born in South Africa, okay, or in these social conditions, okay, that's a level of reading. But I'm saying there's other levels that don't discard that level. I'm saying it enriches it, which are more kind of unknown to us as humans, and that is that the date is important. There's a frequency, there's a time frequency of Earth of that date. And probably you'll say, yeah, but the calendar is just a human construction. You see, that's not really how it is. Like, Earth consciousness, it emerges in human consciousness. So the calendar, or things that like numbers, is an emergence, we could say, from the unconscious. It emerges to the conscious, and we start to order things that way. But it's not something that we created. It's something that we expressed. Yeah. One way of seeing that, because the calendar is mainly based on a number system, isn't it? The calendar is based on a number system. And how do we organize our number system? 9 units, and a 0, don't we? We say there's a 0 and 9 units. Well, what is the solar system like? Is a 0, it's like the sun, the central nervous system, and then 9 planets. So there's a fractal there on, so it's not that we came up with it, it's like, and that's the one that we most socially use. Where do you go? That's the number system we socially use. So what I'm saying is that the calendar is not really a human invention in itself. It's expressed through the human, but it comes from a different level of consciousness. And it has maybe a purpose and experience, which is to organize time and all that to be more efficient. But also it's a way of organizing and having a better reading of in what position and time am I in on this planet. Because today, which is the 29th of August 2020, it's the only 29th of August 2020 that the planet is ever going to experience. So there's something very unique in this moment. You see? So if we can touch on that fiber of frequency, we can have a greater reading of our experience, like the wine taster in the same way. But we have to be open to the experience also.
Right. So I could see a number of ways we could take this, but we're running a little short on time here.
Okay, I completely lost track of time. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe just a touch on, the calendar is a measuring instrument apart from us individually. And then we each have our own experience, our own calendars from birth dates and how it relates to any given day. Can you speak just a little bit on an application, on a broad sense, on how might an individual start to think about this?
Yeah, I would say that a calendar is like a mechanism of, like a membrane of communication between a structure consciousness, which would be a planet, or a global, let's put it, a global consciousness, which is a planet. And think about the level of complexity the global consciousness of Earth must have. It's like all the things that it has to coordinate in order for this planet to interrelate all its aspects. So we could say that, we can't really grasp it. It's just really beyond our neural, it's beyond our personal consciousness, but we are communicated with it. So how do we do the translation? Well, that's a calendar. It's like helping to do this kind of translation, communication between, a global consciousness. The sun, of course, is another global consciousness, and how these interact together and our position as individuals. Then we are placed in a certain coordinates of space-time. So even though this calendar is talking about the whole globe, we have a specific position in it. For example, I'm in Argentina, so a different position in space. I'm in Argentina, in a specific area in Argentina called Mendoza, and that has a space frequency, which is different to where Jeff is. So we have a very unique and very detailed within that global. Okay, it's the 29th of August 2020 for you and for me, but we have a different relationship with that day because we're in a different position of space, and we have a different configuration of antenna. The human vehicle is an antenna. My antenna is configured very differently to Jeff. The year I was born, the area where I was born, the agreements that my soul has. The soul has a certain identity with the participation with Earth and the Sun is different. So we have just very different. How can I say? Yeah, different parameters with which we participate in this global consciousness of Earth and of the Sun in the solar system. Yeah. So I'm not sure. Is there anything else that you can think of that I can look into?
Just one little note on that is so that just even a distinction that you and I are in different time zones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The different time zones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's variations in the sequencing. That's a very good way of seeing also that time is not, there's a relative to space in a way. So we have to take that into consideration. But we all participating on the same planet.
Right.
So there is a convergence. That's why it's called global convergent logic. There's something that converges. There's a logic that converges all our particular logics.
Yeah. Seems like variations based on degree or scale.
Yeah. Degree, scale, And what does the different scales, different angles provide to this globe? It provides an enrichment of its self-expression. So what does we could say our soul provide to the earth? Yeah. What does our soul provide to the earth? An extra ingredient to enrich its learning process. And our soul is participating in that learning process through the physical manifestation and the physical printing, because when my soul is learning, it prints it into the body. The body, when it dies, that information stays on earth. And then my soul also has it as a Dropbox.
Right.
So, so we are providing extra ingredients to enrich. Let's take earth consciousness as a soup, okay? It's a soup. And my soul, in a way, is a pepper. And that soup doesn't have pepper in it. So the pepper kind of, a bit of pepper, and it gives that flavor, a new flavor to that soup. Now that soup, which is enriching itself, the soup on its own, but also the pepper, because the pepper is joining all these other elements, it's tomato, broccoli, and it's also enriching its own participation. So that's what the individual, that's why I'm saying, like, if spirituality tends to want to escape what they call individuality or ego and all that, and they want to go to this, unity consciousness, non-division and all that. But you see, why did the non-divided divide itself? There must be a purpose for it, and this is not, you see, this is also the whole thing, the religious story of punishment or something like that. No, there's no punishment. There's a technology of division, because when that unity self-divides itself, it allows to have different points of view of experience, which then it can integrate in its whole. So it can experience different angles and then integrate it in the whole. Converge, like have a logic which converges it, because at the end of the day, it is what we could call nothingness, using all these different vehicles like planets and stars and galaxies and human beings and all that, to learn more about itself.
Right.
But it's not like, it's not like the division is inferior and that we have to go back to unity consciousness. We have to interconnect. Unity consciousness is right here. It's not something we go. You see, we have to interconnect these multi-dimensions, not select, interconnect. You see, that's why I say it's very different, because spirituality tends to focus that we have to leave that kind of ego and go to the, you see, no. This is a beautiful technology occurring here of communication between different scales, different ranges, different frequencies, and it enriches the soup. Yeah. So our individual participation is very important. Our individual experience is very important. And for us to be involved in it is very important, not trying to escape it all the time. You see? Because if not, at the end, what they're trying to do is kill themselves. Can you see that? When they think that, okay, yeah, when you die, you go into the non-restricted area of consciousness. Okay. But that's not means it's better. Okay. Also, I just want to mention one thing, is that also at the same time, each soul has its own journey, and it's totally legitimate. Like, self-reference and respect to your own decision of journey. I think that it is one axiom that nothingness has with all the souls or the identities or designs of truth or particular consciousness is that I respect your journey. Totally respect your journey. So if that's what nothingness does, I have to take that part of nothingness and also do it. Like, I'm not saying that this is a better choice. This is my choice, and that's what I'm presenting. That's what, and I want to differentiate it from other choices, which is people, who just want to take other journeys. And maybe actually what they really need is to leave the physical expression and go to the non-restriction, more open soul consciousness. And that maybe that's what they need in their journey. Who am I to say not to, I completely respect. What I'm saying is that from my self-expression, what I want to communicate is that I'm involved in this physical experience, and I see the importance of being involved here, and not seeing it as less. You see, that is the need I present in my life, and I want to communicate to the rest. But then, each soul knows its own decision of journey.
Yeah.
So I just want to also leave that there.
Sure.
This is
Okay. That might be a great way to sum up today. I just noticed the chat's been quiet, so maybe people are contemplative, or maybe this is certainly a vast territory, so maybe it might take a little while to synthesize some questions. I'd invite each viewer to be in touch with any follow-up questions or any questions about the logic for future broadcasts. You can reach out to us if you know David or myself, just reach out to us directly. Or you'll be able to find this video and other broadcasts. So please like the New York Global Convergent Logic Forum on Facebook. And David, if you'd like to share a way to contact you.
Probably, the best way would be through my email, which is universalperspective777 at gmail.com. Just wanted to say something. I had this email, universalperspective777, and what I saw later on, when my daughter was born, the day that my daughter was born, 21st of September 2012, and then I saw how many days of life, how many days was I participating with Earth in its rotation around itself on the day that my daughter was born, no? And I saw that it was 10,777 days, you see?
Yes.
But I already made this Gmail with universalperspective777 at gmail.com. So that's 777. And on the day that my daughter was born, I had 10,777 days, you see? So there's a communication of time, and we can see that on the calculation of days through the calendar and all that.
Yeah. But even at, there's meaning, 10777, right?
That's the important thing, because look what 10, okay, some people maybe don't know the dimension.
All right, everyone hang around another hour.
I'll just sum up.
Yes.
Just sum up with this, because 10, what is 10? Like 10 is 1 is the unit of individuality, isn't it? 1, it's the individual. 0 is kind of like, 1 is like its concrete nature. 0, it's abstract nature. Like, what they call binary code. It's 1 and zeros. Everything is 1 and zeros. Well, everything is the combination of concrete and abstract. Okay, so 10, yeah? Each of us is a 10. Why? Because it has a physical individual expression called body, and a consciousness, which is non-physical, 0, 10. And then it has 777. What do we call 7? Like, what do we relate to 7 as? What does 7 kind of express? Yeah, 7 is a dimension of unity. It's like a totality. Okay, so 777 is like the three positions, past, present, and future of totality. Because it's like a whole totality.
Yeah.
So what it's nice, is that what I've been talking about in this program is we have to connect one with the other, our most concrete, our most abstract, and with the total, the unity, which is 7. So, and when a baby is born, it's an unfoldment of your, in a way, of your information. Yeah.
So there's
Well, we are an unfoldment of another information. So okay, so and my daughter's second name is Gaia, which means earth. So it's all kind of connected with that. Yeah. And each of us have these connections. Like, it's not a coincidence the day you were born, your daughter was born, the day that person died. It's not a coincidence. There's a reading of information there. The thing is that maybe we have to learn the language to read it. And that's what a calendar is. It's a language to read
the calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Okay, I'll shut up now.
Well, thank you for your time and knowledge, and thank you everyone for joining us. And please stay in touch online, and please join us for the next episode, which we'll be announcing shortly. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.